the ghosts of Salina Central. For decades, the students and faculty of Salina Central High School have whispered about the lingering presence of Joyce, the stage ghost. Her story is one woven into the very fabric of the school, passed down through generations of students, growing richer with each retelling. But few realize that Joyce is not the only spirit that lingers within these halls. There are others, and their stories, too, have become part of the haunting tapestry of Salina Central. It all began in 1949, long before the school's grand opening. Joyce was a petite, blonde beauty, one of the most popular students at Washington High. She was admired not only for her charm, but for her talent, particularly in theater. That year, Joyce starred as Grazia in the drama Death Takes a Holiday. The play's final scene, where Grazia is taken away by Death himself, left a haunting impression on the audience. Little did anyone know it would foreshadow the tragic end of Joyce's own life. In the spring of 1950, just a year after her unforgettable performance, Joyce was killed in a head-on car crash while returning from a visit to her hometown. The news of her death shook the community to its core. Teachers wept in their classrooms, and students left flowers in the auditorium. Joyce was gone, but even then, whispers began that perhaps she had never truly left. 2 years later, Salina Central High School opened its doors. The school's state-of-the-art auditorium was its pride and joy, and the old stage curtains from Washington High were carefully installed in the new space. It was then, according to legend, that Joyce's spirit found a new home. It didn't take long before rumors began to spread. Strange occurrences in the theater were first chalked up to nerves. Props moved on their own. Lines forgotten in rehearsal seemed to echo back from the wings, and the lights, always the lights, flickered at the perfect moment, as if someone unseen controlled the board. Joyce, it seemed, still had a deep love for the theater, and though her body had left this world, her spirit remained to lend a hand. But Joyce was not the only ghost to roam the halls of Salina Central. In the years following Joyce's death, another presence began to make itself known. This one was more elusive and mischievous. Whispers of an unidentified former teacher, someone who had passed away long ago, began to circulate. Unlike the helpful Joyce, this ghost loved pranks. Custodians working the night shift spoke of doors locking by themselves, cleaning supplies mysteriously shifting positions, and the sound of chalk scratching across a blackboard when no one was around. The words left behind would fade before anyone else could see them. One night in the late 1970s, a janitor named Ed experienced an encounter he would never forget. While cleaning the science wing, he heard the faint sound of laughter. It started softly, almost like wind, but grew louder and louder until it filled the entire corridor. Footsteps followed, slow, heavy steps behind him. When he spun around, no one was there, but the laughter echoed, chilling him to the bone. He finished his shift that night, but turned in his keys the next morning, refusing to return after dark. The legend of Salina Central's ghosts grew as the decades passed. Students added their own experiences to the growing folklore. In 1984, during a rehearsal for Hamlet, a young actor named Daniel saw something impossible. Preparing to deliver his lines on the dim stage, he noticed a figure in the wings. A shadow moved, gliding, silent. Daniel called out, thinking it was a fellow cast member, but no one responded. The figure drifted across the stage and vanished into the curtains. When Daniel stepped closer, the air turned icy. The next morning, his script was found shredded on the floor. Sarah, a set designer from the 1990s, spent many late nights painting backdrops. One evening, she felt a sudden presence, a cold draft, and a sense of being watched. She felt invisible hands guiding her brush across the canvas. When she stepped back, she saw she had painted an intricate lace pattern identical to one Joyce had worn in her senior photo. Shaken, Sarah packed up for the night, Convinced that Joyce had helped her complete the scene, the hauntings didn't stop. In 1997, a group of seniors filmed a documentary about the school's history. While reviewing footage shot in the auditorium, they discovered an orb of light floating above the stage, hovering in place for several seconds before blinking out. On the audio track, faint laughter played over their interviews, laughter no one remembered hearing in person. Teachers, too, have felt the chill of the unseen. Mr. Henderson, a history teacher who spent over 30 years at the school, often stayed late grading papers. On more than one occasion, he heard the distinct sound of a typewriter clacking away in an empty room. Each time he checked, the room was deserted, and the typewriter sat silent and still. Perhaps the most chilling encounter occurred in 2015, when security guard Martin decided to investigate the ghost stories himself. One night, armed with a flashlight and recorder, he walked the halls asking aloud if any spirits were present. For a long time, nothing happened. But as he passed the drama department, his radio crackled. Through the static, a voice whispered, "I never left." After that, Martin never again walked the auditorium alone. Over the years, students have reported hearing whispers backstage, footsteps echoing from empty wings, and props shifting in the middle of the night. One student swore that Joyce saved her from a fall during a performance, grabbing her arm and pulling her back from the edge of the stage. When she turned to thank whoever had helped her, no one was there. Another teacher, Mrs. Calloway, once stayed late to prepare for a lesson. As she worked, she felt a hand rest gently on her shoulder. Assuming it was a colleague, she turned around, but the room was empty. A chill settled over her as the lights flickered. With every passing year, the stories continue. New students hear the legends, and some experience the spirits for themselves. Whether these tales are the result of overactive imaginations or genuine paranormal encounters, they have become an inseparable part of Salina Central's history. And so, with every flicker of the lights, every creak of the floorboards, and every whisper from the shadows, one question lingers. Are they watching still?